And now we go to Reilly Stevens, Senior Counsel and Director of the Amicus Practice, Liberty Justice Center, protecting therapists' free speech. I'm still astounded at what's been going on regarding this issue. Reilly Stevens, thanks for joining us today on the Schilling Show.
Good to be here.
Tell us a little bit about the Liberty Justice Center, if you would.
Yeah, so we're a nonpartisan, nonprofit litigation center. We litigate cases around the country to protect free speech, individual rights, prevent government overreach, all those sorts of fun things. Our website is libertyjusticecenter.org, and we are doing cases all around the country on a variety of topics. It turns out the work is never done.
It never is, and we're glad you're there and doing the work because it's most important. Let's talk about this act in Colorado, the Mental Health Practice Act. What is it, and what is its purpose?
Sure. So the purpose is, the main thing is to regulate the speech of therapists or mental health counselors in general. Basically what it says is if you're going to be a licensed therapist in the state of Colorado, and there's a few other states that have these laws now, it is illegal. You will lose your license basically for any sort of treatment, the purpose of which, the intent of which, the goal of which is to change sexual orientation or gender identity. Basically, people who try to do what's sometimes called sexual orientation change efforts, people who feel that they are gay or trans and aren't happy about that. This says that is an illegitimate mode of therapy for minors. So parents can't find their kids up for this if their kids are having these issues. And this has been challenged now in a case that's will be before the Supreme Court in the coming term by a woman named Chiles, who is a therapist. And basically her position is that this is not a regulation of any kind of treatment, right? It's not about electroshock or aversion therapy, which we could talk about, which is one of the more controversial sorts of versions of this. But rather it's about the goal of trying to change these feelings at all and declaring that illegitimate, and that we think is a First Amendment violation. And so our friends at the Alliance Defending Freedom have brought this lawsuit, and we have filed an amicus brief in support of it.
I'm just curious, if someone went to a counselor and wanted to be convinced that they were gay or they wanted to become transgender, is that also prohibited by this law, or does it just go one way?
No, it's one way. That's the whole problem. Right? The problem is not necessarily that you can have forms of regulation of medical practice, and the problem is not anything else. The problem is that the state is deciding what the legitimate use of therapy is, essentially, and that is what we object to and what our friends over at ADF have objected to as well.
Let's talk about the legal principles behind this. It just seems outrageous to me that a state would step in and do what Colorado's done, but I would imagine they're not even alone in this.
They're not. No, there's laws that in California, in Washington, I think in New Jersey. There was a law in Florida that was struck down. Actually, it was a local ordinance in Boca Raton, I think.
Okay.
That was struck down. So these are all around the country now, actually.
So the legal principles behind this?
Well, the legal principle behind the challenge to the law
Yes.
is the First Amendment, right? That this is essentially a discrimination against particular viewpoints, saying that one viewpoint in regards to these issues is legitimate and one is illegitimate, and that is not supposed to be the government's role in regulating medical practice, right? When we're regulating doctors, or in this case mental health professionals, we're supposed to be regulating safety, competence, whether or not they've got the credentials, whether or not they have the right training. It should not be about whether the goals that the patients come to them looking for are legitimate or not.
Well, it seems, Counselor Stevens, that this would be just drop dead obvious under the First Amendment, and yet, as I understand it, this case was turned down or dismissed by the appeals court. On what grounds?
Yes, so it was right. So we lost in the Court of Appeals, and then they've also lost a number of these cases that challenges to those other states I mentioned, California,
yes,
Washington. They won in Florida. The challengers won in Florida, and we think they should win here because we do think it's open and shut. This is very clear. The Court of Appeals says, look, this is the regulation of medical practice, and so therefore the state has some role in that. But our position would be that this goes well beyond what states traditionally do, regulating the health and safety issues in medicine. Rather, it's regulating certain outcomes that some people desire and the state doesn't approve of.